Welcome to the Fantasy Thinker. I'm Jared. It is that time again. It's the end of the year stuff, and this is my top 10 books of the year for 2024. This is the first time I'm doing a top 10. Last year, I only did a top 5. Why? Because last year, I only read 35, 37 books or so. And I was like, top 10's a little much. This year, I managed to read 53 books, and that's not including various graphic novels, uh, stacks of comics, D&D modules, and magazines, and various short stories from various different places. So uh, just 53 books. So I figured, let me do a full top 10. All right. This top 10 was tough to put together. It really was. I read a lot of cool books this year, a lot of great books. Just because a book doesn't make this top 10 doesn't mean it wasn't good. It was not the case at all. I read a lot of great books this year. So this top 10 is very, very arbitrary, very ephemeral, and really could go 10 to 1, 1 to 10 could be very similar. They're really that close. So it's based purely upon what's still on my mind, what is, just my gut feeling overall. So I will also get later on into some plans for 2025. But for now, top 10 books of the year. At number 10, coming in strong, is Peril's Gate by Janie Wirtz. Wars of Light and Shadow, book six. Book 6 in the Wars of Light and Shadow. This was a very pivotal book in a series, and it's a really big, thick book too. A lot of pages, and it was really, once again, what can we say about Janie Wirtz's writing? That it's so just like complex, dynamic. The word usage is she's second to none as far as that goes, and it just, this story, The Wars of Light and Shadow, it gets grander, bigger, and more complex as we go on. And I really, really am enjoying my journey through Ethera and The Wars of Light and Shadow as we go along. So stay tuned. At number 9, I have Gene Wolfe, The Fifth Head of Cerberus. Cerberus, yes. This was my first exposure to Gene Wolfe. I have since read a short story by him as well, but I have plans to read Book of the New Sun as well. But The Fifth Head of Cerberus was a really, really cool story. Cheers. And I enjoyed that. I read that as part of the Sci-Fi Masterworks read-along on Page Chewing. And The Fifth Head of Cerberus was kind of like 3 novellas interrelated, and very well put together, and very strange in that Gene Wolfe style. I love his style of writing. I thought it was really fun. I thought it was fun to put the pieces together in this book, and I really like what he did with it. So, number 9. Moving on to number 8, I read Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. This I read in conjunction with my Book Think episode on this book with Evie from She Was Only Evie, and I had a great time with this book. This book was deep and emotionally effective. It really delved into, for a 1960s, a character with mental disability who goes through the scientific process, and it's really heartbreaking, heart wrenching, and really stuck with me on a personal level. So that was number 8, Flowers for Algernon. And next, we'll be moving into number 7, and that is Mark Lawrence's The Book That Broke the World. This is the sequel to The Book That Wouldn't Burn, and book 2 in the library trilogy. And I think I preferred The Book That Wouldn't Burn better than this one, but this one really brought the story along well. It was a little bit shorter, and it was just a great time to read this book. I had a blast revisiting this world in the library trilogy, revisiting these characters, and getting to know some new characters and learning a bit more about the library, the Infinite Library, in the book that broke the world for the library trilogy by Mark Lawrence. So that was number 7. Number 6 is a non-fiction book that I had a great time reading. That is Yuval Noah Harari's Nexus, A Brief History of Information Networks from the Stone Age to AI. Love me a good history book. Love me a good history book with a heavy dose of philosophy, and I love me a good specific history, like the history of information networks and how information works, how it attributed to the spread of ideas and mythologies and fictions and storytelling, and nobody writes that kind of history like Harari does. And I thoroughly enjoyed this book. This comes in at number 6. Like I said, any of these could be flip-flopped and switched up to numbers up to the top 5, but getting into the top 5. At number 5, we have one of my favorite writers, Stephen Erickson's The Devil Delivered and Other Tales. This was a collection of 3 novellas that I had never read before, and so I read them this year, and I had a blast with these stories. I thought these, especially the second 2 stories in here, Revolvo and Fishing with Grandma Matchy, really brought out his sense of humor, and I loved how he pulled those off. I loved the first story too, The Devil Delivered, kind of an apocalyptic cautionary tale, and so had a great time, and I was glad to see to read. There was no new Erickson book I had to read this year, so that was it, and I was so glad I read it. Okay, number 4 on this list, we go back to Janie Wirtz, and that is Grand Conspiracy. Yes, I really liked Grand Conspiracy. I love the how this tale from start to finish really was tight, and it really explored a specific aspect of this wars of light and shadow and this specific conspiracy that happened in this book, and the consequences of it, and specifically with a couple of female characters in here that I thought was really well done, and I really enjoyed Grand Conspiracy a lot, and was my favorite book of the year for the Wars of Light and Shadow book. And just as a side note, I read all of Janie's short stories dealing with the Wars of Light and Shadow, except one that I have to read after Storm Fortress, I believe. So that those were all fantastic as well. So read those short stories if you are reading Wars of Light and Shadow books. Do yourself a favor and read those. That was number 4. Number 3, I read Spear by Nicola Griffith. I was so surprised by this book and how well it was put together and how much I enjoyed it. It was really short, which helps, but it was short and succinct, and really had a different take on the Arthurian legend. That there's like a gazillion books on about Arthur and the sword and Merlin and all that stuff, but she really put a different spin on it, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. So please do yourself a favor and check this out. It's a quick read. You can get through it pretty quick. And Spear is number 3 on my list for the year. Really, really great book. Next one, is another sci-fi masterwork read-along. It was my favorite of the year for those, and it is called Earth Abides by George Stewart. And I just is that right? Yeah. And I just really, really enjoyed Earth Abides. It really was the most enjoyable post-apocalyptic story I've ever read. It was kind of idyllic in that manner, and I really appreciated that. I didn't get into the horrific, gory details of what a post-apocalyptic world would look like. It got into the story of specific characters in that type of setting and what they did to create this new life. And it was so beautifully written and put together that I really just appreciated it. And I had a great time with Earth Abides. So that's number 2. Number 1 is The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. This fantastic new mythology really grabbed me because I like a good dose of mythology, and this was a really newly created mythology that I thought was so clever. It had a really clever use of second person that um, really engaged you as a reader to be a part of this story, and it just I just really loved how him and his put this together, how he managed to just grasp my attention right from the beginning with this combination of first, second, and third person narrative, and I just loved it. I loved it so much that I could not stop thinking about it all year long. And so The Spear Cuts Through Water gets my number 1 vote. Um, like I said, all these books could be probably interchanged depending upon my mood at the time. So, take that for what it's worth. But that's my list for the top 10 of the year. If you liked any of those, let me know below. And let me know how you feel towards any of these books. So maybe some of my choices would have moved up in your eyes or moved down or what have you. That's cool because I had a hard time putting them in order. So I did, of course, none of this list did not include any rereads that I did because I did reread a bunch of stuff in 2024. Of course, I'm still doing my Malazan reread, and I'm almost done with the main 16 books there. Uh, and so, of course, Cripple God, Dust of Dreams, and uh, Toll the Hounds I read this year. Wow. Um, and of course, and I also read Orb Scepter Throne, Blood and Bone, and I'm halfway through a sale right now. Wow. Unbelievable. But I also did reread Dune. So that was a really cool reread. We had a great discussion on it. And I also reread sort of Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. Because my initial read of that was through the graphic novel form, and now I reread the prose book and was equally blown away by that. So that's great. And yeah, so that's my top 10. What do I got coming up in the near future here for 2025? I, of course, plan to continue on with the Wars of Light and Shadow. I'm already in Storm Fortress, which is the what number is that? 8? Yeah, 8th book in the series out of 11. So I plan to continue on with that series, and after I finish a sale, I'm going to take a little break from Malazan for a while. Don't know how long. Don't know how long I can stay away. So we'll see how that goes, depending upon what new release news we get. Anything new that comes out from Erickson this year or next year, I will read, of course. I'm also looking forward to the 3rd book in the library trilogy in this upcoming year. I'm looking forward to more releases from from P.L. Stewart and his Drowned Kingdom saga. And I'm looking forward to any other new releases that might come out from any other of my favorite authors. I'm doing a reread of Reeve the Just and Other Tales for my short fiction side hustle. So stay tuned for that. I did take December off from my book think because I do want to actually catch up and read some of the books that were suggested to me that I hadn't read yet on for that series. So hopefully I can get going on that on those books. I want to read The Vanished Birds by Simon Jimenez. Uh, and what else do I want to read? I got another Conan novel I want to read. I want to read The Great When by Alan Moore. So that's coming up this year. I'm also going to be reading Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte as a classic. And for the literary fiction side hustle, I'm going to be continuing my comparison of comic book to prose with Assassin's Apprentice. That should wrap up this year. So I will finish off Assassin's Apprentice finally. And what else I got? I think that's all I can think of for the year upcoming so far. So, with all that said, that's my top 10, and that's my plans. So, as always, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe below, and be good to each other. Thank you.